This conference will now be recorded.
Hi all, good morning, good evening. Welcome to the training session for mobile performance testing using JMeter and LoadRunner. So today is our demo session on this particular training exclusively provided by Isha Training Solutions. My name is Chandra and I will be your trainer for this entire training session. I have almost 14 years of experience on performance testing, performance engineering, different tools like JMeter, LoadRunner, NewLoad, and application performance monitoring tools like Dynatrace, AppDynamics, Datadog, Neural Lake, etc. Now, this particular training is based on the mobile application performance testing. Many people are aware of performance testing, but when it comes to mobile application performance testing, that is the real challenge, right? So that is why this training is provided by Isha Training Solutions so that people get acquainted with mobile application performance testing and they can do more and more of it. Now coming to some ground rules of this training as well as today's session. So as I mentioned, today is the demo session. So we
Sorry, your voice is breaking actually.
Your voice is not audible.
yeah, I think there was some network issue at my end, I believe, because it was showing that there is some technical issue. So hope I'm audible now, everyone.
Yeah, it's fine.
Thank you so much. Would anyone be able to tell like how much were you able to hear me clearly? Okay. So let me share my screen. Hope my screen is visible to all of you. So coming to the
Yes.
ground rules. Yeah, thank you for confirming. So coming to the ground rules of the sessions. So today we are having the demo session on mobile performance testing using JMeter and LoadRunner. So with this demo session, we are providing a chance to you all to evaluate us how we are providing these sessions. Are they useful to us or useful to you or not, right? Along with that, we are going to see the course content, what all things we are going to cover as part of this training. And then some of the ground rules are basically whenever you do not have any questions, please be on mute. Whenever you have any queries, kindly unmute yourself and ask your query. And all these sessions are going to be recorded. Okay, all sessions are going to be recorded and you all are going to have the lifetime access to the videos. The documents, the presentations, the materials will be provided as part of the training. And whenever you have any queries, please ask. The most important part is your queries should be resolved. Okay. So any queries, anyone, before we start? Actually, I'm presenting the screen. So if you put any message in the chat window, I'll not be able to see them. So I'll suggest please unmute and ask. Yeah, because when I'm presenting, I'll not be able to see the chat window. Any queries anyone till now?
Yeah, sir. No questions, Chintra.
Okay, thank you so much. So coming to the course content, guys, okay, this is an exclusive training. As I told you, like, people might be aware of performance testing, but when it comes to mobile devices, mobile application performance testing, it is a real challenge, right? So this course has been designed taking that into mind. Let us go to the course curriculum. So first we are going to see the introduction to the mobile application performance testing. Okay, so what is performance testing? I'll try to brush up your skills about performance testing, and then what is mobile application performance testing, a bit of introduction about it. Then we'll dive into what are the different types of mobile applications, right? Because we are going to do the performance testing of mobile applications, it is very necessary, very important to know what are the different types of mobile applications. Now, when we are doing the mobile application performance testing, what are the key performance indicators? Which are the different metrics which we can use to measure the performance of mobile applications? Then, what are the requirements for mobile application performance testing? Okay, for mobile application performance testing, what all things do you need? What are your requirements? What are your prerequisites? Now, with every project, there are challenges. With every activity, there are challenges. Similarly, in mobile application performance testing also, there are different challenges. So we are going to see some of the key challenges as part of the mobile application performance testing. And we are going to use our in-house mobile application. So Isha Training Solutions is providing the in-house mobile application for performance testing purpose. As part of this training, we are not going to use any sample applications, guys. So I'm going to give you the walkthrough of the mobile application which we are going to use. So basically the different scenarios and all which can be done as part of this application, and then we are going to work on the transaction flow documentation. What all are the different transactions which we are going to cover as part of this training? We are going to document the transaction flows. I'll take a pause here. Any queries anyone till now? Okay, I'll take this no. And then, as I told you, we are going to see that with JMeter and LoadRunner, which are the most, tools, most demanding tools in the current market. One is in the open source area, the one is in the commercial area. So JMeter and LoadRunner are the tools which are in the most demand today. So that is why we have chosen both of them. It's not that only JMeter or only LoadRunner. We are going to have the training on both of them. So I'm going to cover the test script recording with JMeter. So if you all are aware of JMeter, we can use JMeter to record web applications. Similarly, there is a technique how we can record these scripts for mobile applications using the test script recorder of JMeter. And then once your test script is recorded, that needs to be enhanced, right? A script which is just recorded cannot be used for performance testing. In that case, everyone would be a performance tester. So we have to do the necessary customizations like correlation, parameterization, etc. in our test script. And then we are going to do the test execution and analysis in JMeter. All our tests are also going to be monitored with application performance monitoring tool. Most probably, we will be using Dynatrace. in order to monitor our test execution. Okay. Then we move on to test script recording with LoadRunner. Okay, test script recording with LoadRunner. So we have different protocols in LoadRunner. So first we are going to see how we can develop the test script in LoadRunner with web HTTP HTML protocol. Here all of you, first we are going to see how we can develop the scripts with web HTTP HTML protocol, and then as I told you, we have to again do the necessary customizations like correlation, parameterization in LoadRunner. And then, as I told you, LoadRunner has different protocols. We are going to see the test script recording with true client protocol of LoadRunner. So previously we saw web HTTP HTML. Then we are going to see the true client protocol. Then we are going to do the test execution and analysis in LoadRunner. So during these tests executions made with JMeter, made with the LoadRunner, we are going to monitor our test executions. By the help of monitoring, we are going to see how the mobile application is performing. Now, you all would be thinking, we all are doing monitoring as part of web application performance tests. Is there anything different in this? Or if we know monitoring, then we should be able to do this. The answer is 50% correct. Yes, if you have already monitored web applications, you should be able to monitor the mobile applications also, but there are additional parameters. Like whenever you are using any mobile application, the mobile application could crash, right? That is a very important factor. So we are going to see that how can you monitor the crash rate of mobile application. Then similarly, when any mobile application is getting used, what is the impact of that mobile application on your device? That is also very important. If your mobile application is hitting up your device, that is not user friendly. That is not user friendly. So there are different parameters which we have to monitor when it comes to a mobile application. Here all of you. Then we are going to do the test execution with bandwidth throttling. Okay, we are going to see with different bandwidths how is the performance of the mobile application. Very, very important. In different geographies, different network bandwidth. So the performance of your application will not be the same throughout different locations, throughout different geographies. And now because you are catering to a large number of users as part of your mobile application, it's very important for the customer to know how is it the application behaving for different network bandwidth, right? Even in India as well, with the launch of 5G, there is different network bandwidth because 5G is not available throughout the country. So a person using the mobile application on 5G and the person using the mobile application on 4G is going to experience different performance on the mobile application. So it is very important that we understand how do we do test execution with bandwidth throttling. And then the final one is to how to document the test report. So we are going to see the test report documentation for mobile application performance testing. So these all topics have been carefully designed to give you all the aspects of mobile application performance testing so that you become well acquainted with test script development, test execution, test reporting and monitoring. And again, we are covering the tools like JMeter and LoadRunner, so you will have the experience on both of them for developing your scripts. Are all of you clear? Any queries, anyone? I'll take a pause here.
Chandra, just I have one doubt. Like, what is the prerequisites of to learn this course?
The prerequisites of this course is you should be having basic knowledge on JMeter and LoadRunner.
Okay, any coding knowledge?
Coding knowledge is not required. And also during the test script development, I'm going to show you the entire process, right? How you are going to develop the script in JMeter, how you are going to develop the script in LoadRunner, what are the steps. So, but yes, coding knowledge is not required.
Okay, you talked about monitoring. Which monitoring tools
Yeah,
you're gonna be using?
I'll be most probably using Dynatrace for monitoring.
Is it okay you can put that in the course content?
I'm sorry.
Is it okay to put that in the course content?
Sure, sure. I'll put that. I'll update that. Any other queries?
Yeah, Chandra. So actually, so we are covering native apps in JMeter. So because previous, it's after the Android 10 is we are not able to recording is not possible because of the security reasons. Is it possible that?
Yes, so we are going to use the native application, the in-house
Hmm.
application of Isha Training Solutions. So yes, that we are going to use
Okay.
as part of this
Because
training.
Android after the Android 10 is they have some put some restrictions to record from the third party, right?
So I'm not aware of that. So we'll have to check that.
Okay. Because nowadays, if even Android 13 also, so we are able to record as per your information, right?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Any other queries? So any other queries on the course content? Or would you like to add any topics to this? Means if you think that any of the topics which is not included, but I think from my point of view, from a mobile application performance testing point of view, we have added all the different topics which could apply to mobile application performance system.
Yeah, Chandra, it's one suggestion I can provide. So we have the recording methods, so different methods are there, right?
Yeah.
We can add multiple methods for the recording, so then that will be useful to us.
So yes, I have like for JMeter we are going to use the desktop recorder, and for
Mhm.
JMeter we have web HTTP HTML and true client.
Okay. Other than recording also, so we have multiple options, right? So we can convert the HER files and
Yeah, yeah. So
so
those
like
all things will be those all things will be covered during the sessions.
okay.
Means in case there
So
is means what are the different challenges in case of any
mhm.
challenge, what steps you should take. So those all things will be discussed during the sessions.
Okay. Okay then.
No?
Okay. Yeah.
Actually, I just want to ask, like, in this performance measurement, like we are covering both Android and iOS app, or how it is?
Now, so as part of this training, we're going to cover only Android applications.
Okay, and can you give a short, like, in the session, like,
Yeah,
how to
I'll
measure for the
cover
iOS?
I'll cover the theory for iOS, but the demonstration, the application will be used on the Android platform.
Okay.
So why not iOS?
Sorry, could you please come again?
Why Android alone?
So the application which we have developed, we have the Android version of it for now. We are currently working on, the iOS version as well. So once that is ready, we will be able to accommodate the iOS part as well. But the steps are, not very much different from each other.
One more doubt. Like in this performance measurement, so can we measure the performance of progressive web app also?
Could you please come again? In
So
this performance
as this
measurement.
progressive web app.
So we are covering the web applications. Then means basically I'll tell you what are the different types of mobile applications, but from the demonstration point of view, we are going to use only the native application.
Okay, thanks.
Any other queries? Okay, so this was the course content or the curriculum which we are having for the mobile application performance testing using JMeter and LoadRunner provided by Isha Training Solutions. So next we go to the demo session. We'll start our demo for today. Again, I would like to reiterate, if you have any queries, please unmute yourself and ask. If not, kindly be on mute. Thank you for your cooperation. So we'll quickly start with our demo for today. So as I informed you, I'll be first going through some of the basics of performance testing, trying to brush up the skills on performance testing. Basically, then I'll move on to the mobile application performance testing. Now, the term performance testing, right? I would say this is definitely a type of testing which you all know, but this is the most neglected testing also in the different customer spaces, right? Different customers do not provide that much of importance to performance testing. Let's see why. But before that, I would like to tell you that what is performance testing, right? Why do we do performance testing? Performance testing is nothing but it is a testing technique. It is a technique by which you do some kind of testing. Now, what kind of testing is that? This is basically a type of non-functional testing. In performance testing, you are not going to verify the functionality of the application, right? Are we going to verify the functionality? No, we are not verifying the functionality of the application, because functionality of the application is verified in the other testing types, may it be functional testing or may it be automation testing. So in automation testing also, you do the functional testing, right? But some people might argue that performance testing also is also one type of automation testing. But again, in the testing industry space, automation testing is something which we define or which we relate with functional testing. In performance testing is also the one type of automated testing, because we are not doing any tests manually. In some scenarios, you won't believe, but there are customers where performance testing is done with the help of stoppers as well, as on today, because some of the products might not be compatible with the different testing tools. So that is where the manual testing takes place. But again, that is not to measure, or that is not to check the functionality, rather measure the performance of that particular application. So as I mentioned, we are not verifying the functionality of the application. Performance testing is a non-functional testing technique. Now what do we do? What is our objective, right? What do we measure? In performance testing, our objective is, or basically we are trying to measure the speed of the application. Now, the speed of the application means we are not asking the application to do a running race. Rather, we are asking, means we are using the application. So how fast is it working, right? How fast the application is working. So basically we are measuring the speed of the application. Clear, all of you? Then the stability. So if my mobile application or web application, anything, if it is providing good speed, for example, but if that application is not stable, whatever application we are testing, that is having good speed, but if it is not stable, then that is again not going to be providing good user experience. So we need speed, we need stability of the application as well. So we by the help of performance testing, we are trying to measure the speed, the stability, and then scalability. So in speed and stability, we are checking like for a particular load, that load could be with the number of users, that load could be with the volume of data, right? So how the application is performing under that particular load. Now any application, any customer, they have an application today, let's say it is getting used by 5,000 users. No application, no customer in this world would like to have the same customer footprint after 5 years or after 3 years or even after 1 year also, right? Even after 1 year also, the customer would like to have increased footprints, because for them this is a business, and in business profit matters, right? More the profit, more is the sustainable. So if I am checking the performance of the application under one particular load, I also have to verify whether that application can cater to additional volume, right? Additional load. That load could be your peak load. That load could be your volumetric after 1 year or 1 year or 3 years or 5 years. Clear? So my application should not only have good speed, my application should not only be stable, it should also be scalable. So with performance testing, we are also measuring the scalability factor of the application which we are testing. So speed, stability, scalability, and responsiveness, right? Responsiveness. It is very much applicable to the mobile application. The mobile application which you are using on the device, that should be responsive. If the application is not responsive to the user is not going to have a good experience. So if the experience is not good, it is very likely that the user will switch to the application of the competitor, right? User will switch to the application of the competitor. So speed, stability, scalability, responsiveness, and the major factors, okay, which are the basis of performance testing. So in performance testing, just to summarize, it is a non-functional software testing technique which is used to measure the speed, the stability, the scalability, the responsiveness of the application. If all these factors are available, we can say that the user experience is going to be, good for that particular application, and the application is reliable. The application is reliable. Clear, all of you? Any queries, anyone? So moving on to the next slide, what are the goals of performance testing, right? So you are measuring speed, you are measuring stability, you are measuring scalability, you are measuring responsiveness. But what are the goals of performance testing? The goal of performance testing is basically to evaluate, okay, goals of performance testing is basically to evaluate different parameters, different parameters. One of them is application output. Application output. When the application is getting used, what is the output of that application? Is it able to cater to the needs of the user, right? Is it able to cater to the needs of the user? So application output is getting evaluated as part of performance testing. Processing speed, how fast the application is able to process, how fast the application is able to process. That is why we are evaluating the processing speed. Data transfer velocity. Now, in case there are scenarios where you are transferring data from one interface to the another, from one application to the another, right? Or inside a single application also, there is interaction between different components. Now in the world of microservices, right? Different microservices interact with each other to meet the business outcome. So data gets transferred between two applications, or data gets transferred within an application. So what is the velocity with which the data transfer can happen? And again, from the client to server, from the server to the client, whenever we are sending any request from the client to the server processes that request. The response comes back from the server to the client. Over the network also, the information is sent in the form of bytes. We have to take into consideration that particular factor as well. So the next point is, as I was telling you about data transfer velocity and network bandwidth. How much of network bandwidth is getting used, right? Our goal is to evaluate the usage of the network bandwidth as well. Clear, all of you? How much of network bandwidth is getting used? Then what is the maximum concurrent users? So there is a difference between maximum users and maximum concurrent users. Maximum users means that is the maximum number of users who would be using the application, but that might not be concurrent. Concurrent means at the same time they should be doing some transactions. They might not be doing the same transaction. They might not be doing the same transaction at the same time, but concurrent in concurrent users, they might not be doing the same transaction at the same time, but at the same time, they would be doing some transactions. All the concurrent users would be doing some transactions at any point of time. So we want to evaluate what is the maximum concurrent users with which the application is going to be used. Okay, what is the maximum concurrent users with which the application can be used and it is going to perform well. Here all of you. Then memory utilization. So how much memory is getting utilized? Along with memory, we go for CPU utilization, right? Disk utilization, network utilization. So we have different KPIs. We have to measure those KPIs as part of the goals of performance testing. Workload efficiency. Now, workload is very important as far as performance testing is concerned. You are defining with that particular workload. Okay, what is a workload? Can anyone confirm, or do you want me to explain what is a workload? Are you all aware? Anyone would like to share some thoughts on this? Okay, so workload is nothing but your application is going to be under load, right? Under a particular load. So with that particular load, how many transactions you are going to achieve, how many successful transactions you are going to achieve under that particular load, and in order to meet that, and also how much of response time you want to achieve, right? How much of response time you want to achieve. So in order to meet your requirements for the workload, you have to design the workload model. So I am measuring that whether my workload model is first of all correct or not, and under that workload my application is performing or not. So we are checking whether my application is efficient as far as the workload is concerned. So workload is basically you are having a particular load. Under that load you are trying to achieve a particular TPS and a particular response time using our formula, right? Little slow. Everyone is aware of little slow. So with little slow we can design the workload model. So any queries, anyone? And the response times, right? We are going to measure the response times, how fast the application is responding when you are navigating, within how much of time the next page is appearing. Okay, so we are going to measure the response times. So when it comes to response time, we have server side response time, we have client side response time. Clear all of you? So these are the different goals for our performance testing. Any queries, anyone? Any queries? Next, we go to the common terminologies which are used in performance testing, right? All of you must be aware, in performance testing, mostly we do the test with virtual user. Why? Because when you are trying to do the test with actual human beings, it will not be possible to deploy so many human beings to just test the application, and human beings are prone to errors, right? So there is a very likelihood that errors can occur. So that is why we are testing with the help of tool, and the tool is simulating a real user. The tool is simulating a real user, which is actually a virtual user. So virtual user is nothing but the users which we are generating with the help of the performance testing tool to simulate the user actions, which is in our scope of performance testing. Response time. Response time is basically the time taken by the server. So when the request goes from the client to the server will process that request, right? So the time taken by the server to process the request, and the response has to reach to the client, right? Response has to reach to the client, and then the response which is coming back from the server to the client, it is not coming at one go. It is coming in the form of bytes, right? So we have one parameter known as time to first byte. Clear, all of you? We have one KPI known as time to first byte. So we measure what is time to first byte. So the time taken by the first byte, or basically it is like, the time taken by the first byte to reach from the server to the client, right? To reach from the server to the client. So your response time will be the time taken by the server plus the time to first byte. Clear? Throughput. Now, when the requests are going from the client to the server, they are basically the hits, right? So, as a result of user action, there are hits happening on the server. Now, the server has to process those requests, the server has to process those hits and bring out some meaningful information out of it. Then only we can say the transaction has passed or the transaction has failed. So throughput is nothing but the amount of requests processed by the server, the amount of requests. Okay, so the amount of request it is processing, as a result, how many successful transactions are happening? How many successful transactions are happening? There are successful transactions, you can say, per minute, per second, per hour. You can measure in terms of that time. So basically that is the throughput of your server. How many transactions are happening, right? Then we have a request. Request is nothing but it goes from the client to the server. So what is a request? Now whenever I perform any user action, now when I say about user action, I, for example, launch one URL. I launch any URL. So when I launch the URL, after some time I can see some page on the browser, right? Some landing page on the browser. So how did it come up? When I clicked on the URL, when I launched the URL, I did a user action. As part of that user action, the request went from my system, that is my browser, so that is my client, right, to the server. So the request will have a request body and a request header. Request body, request header as part of the request payload. Response. So for every request, there will be a response from the server. So the server is going to process the request and then send back the response. Clear? Server is going to process the request and then send back the response. Transaction. So whenever you are doing any user action, that user action is nothing but a transaction, and that user action could pass or could fail during our performance test. So your transactions will be either passed transactions or will be failed transactions. Okay, and obviously the objective of the test is to have fast transactions, not failed transactions. You can have some failed transactions, but there is a limit, right? There is an acceptable limit how much you can have as the failed transactions. Clear, all of you? User action or the transaction. Transactions per second. So how many transactions are getting successfully processed? How many transactions are successfully completing per second? That is a very important factor, guys. TPS. So when we are designing the workload model, we would need this particular factor also. So people might ask us how much TPS can be achieved, or they will give us the requirement, I want to achieve this much of TPS. So based on that, we have to design the workload model. Any queries, anyone till now? Next one is iterations per second, or iteration. Iteration and iterations per second. Now, there is a difference between transaction and iteration. So for example, I want to book a flight or I want to purchase a product. So those are my business flows. I want to cancel an order. That is a business flow. So for that particular business flow, you have to do some transactions. For example, you have to launch the application. You have to log in into the application, right? You have to search for a particular flight. You have to search for a particular product. Then you have to go and purchase that. And during purchase also, you have to make the payment and all. So launch, login, search, you know these all are different transactions. These all are different transactions. So in your business flow, different transactions will be involved. Now one complete flow of transactions, in order to mark my business flow as complete, right? The entire flow of transactions, in order to mark my business flow as complete, I will call it as one iteration. I'll call it as one iteration. So in performance testing, during the test execution, you are going to have multiple iterations, right? You are going to have multiple iterations. Then comes another terminology known as the think time, which is also very, very important, guys. Okay, when we are using any application, as a real user, we are doing some transactions, right? So once a transaction is completed, immediately we do not go to the next transaction. Intentionally or unintentionally, there is a elapsed time, or there is a time gap between the different transactions, right? There is a time gap between the different transactions. Now, as I told you, in performance testing, we are trying to simulate our production behavior, real user behavior. So we have to take into account that particular behavior also, where there is a time gap between the different transactions. That time is known as think time. That time is known as think time. So as part of the workload also, we try to find out what is our think time. So think time will be the time gap between two transactions, like time between launch and login, time between login and search. How much time? That you will come to know as part of the workload model. As per industry standards, think time can range between 2 to 5 seconds, not more than that, guys. Okay, but again, it depends on your requirement. If you have a small requirement, so in that case your think time might increase. Next, pacing. Pacing is also time, guys. Very important. During interviews, you will be asked what is the difference between think time and pacing. Okay, what is the difference between think time and pacing? As I told you, think time is the time gap between two different transactions. Now, when a real user is using any application, he or she might do one transaction in most of the times. Like for example, I want to book a flight. Now during a single session, I might not be booking multiple flights, right? Because if I have to plan a journey, I'll book that flight and I'll come out of that application. But in performance testing, we are keeping the system under load for a particular duration. May it be 1 hour, may it be 2 hours, may it be 8 hours, depending on the different type of test we are doing. Now, any transaction would take hardly 5 minutes in the real world, right? Like 4 or 5 transactions, maximum 5 minutes. Now, if I have to do that over a time period of 1 hour and 2 hours, it means my iterations are going to be repeated, right? My iterations are going to be repeated. If you want to provide any time gap between the two different iterations, if you want to provide the time gap between the two different iterations, that will be your pacing. So time gap between transactions is your think time. Time gap between your iterations is the pacing. Next, network latency. Network latency. So due to the network in between the client and the server, how much of time has been consumed over the network? How much time has been consumed over the network? That is your network latency, right? That is your network latency. Then non-functional requirement is a common terminology, guys. Requirements for non-functional testing are known as non-functional requirements. You are going to do the performance testing, but what are you going to verify? What are you going to verify? You are going to verify based on the non-functional requirements which are given to you. Okay, you are going to verify based on the non-functional requirements which will be given to you. So the non-functional requirements are going to specify the requirements for the application. Clear, all of you? Then we have the test script which we are going to develop as part of our performance testing. So test script, and then the scenario, how we are going to execute that test script, how we are going to execute that particular test script. And then the load generator machine. I told you guys, we are going to generate the virtual user. The virtual user is going to do the transactions. So we have to generate a particular load with which we want to do the performance testing. So the machine from where we are going to generate the load is known as the load generator. Is known as the load generator. So these are some of the common terminologies which we are going to use in performance testing. So with this, we'll stop the demonstration for today and we'll continue in the next session. Thank you all for joining. Hope you will enjoy today's session. Looking forward to tomorrow's session. Thank you all for joining. Bye for now.